Mr. Chair. I wanted to pick up not exactly where I left off, but where the Minister and the Chair, the Honourable Rodney Hyde, left off in his discussion of the changes proposed to the Conservation Act. Because he referred not so much to the specific objectives of the bill in terms of removing gaps and duplications and errors and inconsistencies, but rather to the broader purpose to which those were to be removed. In other words, to improve, I guess, the environment for business. And he used two words in respect of the proposed increase in the maximum length of concessions from 5 to 10 years. He said it would make the process more efficient and more contestable. Well, you know, sir, it's a while since I studied economics, but it seems to the Green Party that rather than improving contestability, for example, the effect of increasing the term of concessions is to reduce contestability, because the effect of a concessionaire having their concession extended for a further 5 years, and again I emphasise for the House that that's not necessarily with any public input at all, is actually to make it very much more difficult for competitors and those who might wish to contest the concession to be able to have a viable go at the next time. I'm mindful of the work of the Commerce Commission in respect of laboratory services for the Otago and Southland DHBs, and the Commerce Commission had the very strong view, for example, that in that case the sole contract that was proposed for an extended period would have a chilling effect, in fact, on competition and on contestability by shutting out competitors. And so that when it came to the end of that contract, it would be difficult for other potential competitors to be in a position to actually make viable bids. So what is proposed by this bill is anti-competitive, and it seems unusual for the Green Party to be making that point in a House where it's normally either National or Labour that's making that point, but it seems that we need to, because no one else is doing that. I think we would call that monopolistic, in fact. So sir, I wanted to talk in the time that I have remaining about several of the other downsides, because sure, there's an upside. There is a small increase in efficiency for the business that happens to be successful in getting the concession. There is a small upside there, and I guess on the other side for the department there's also a reduced cost in administering that. On the downside, we have the monopolistic effect that we have chilling competition. We have the fact that there will be increased pressure from other businesses who have been shut out of that process wanting to apply for concessions in other parts of the conservation estate. And we have the difficulty at the beginning of a 10-year period predicting what all of the effects may be for a 10-year period and determining appropriate conditions. There's a mid-term review, but sir, my submission is that that's inadequate. And sir, I'm particularly concerned about the fact that the public is shut out of that process, and in response to the Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp's contribution earlier on, I'm very much aware that the bill actually provides for concessions in excess, exceeding 10 years, for which, yes, the public will in fact have the right to have a say, but anything up to 10 years, that's solely at the discretion of the Minister, and I believe that's inappropriate and inadequate. And I say that, sir, in the broader context of those pressures on the department around concessions that I referred to earlier. We're already starting to see decisions made by the department for commercial reasons. It's a small point, sir, but the Cathedral Cove concession stand earlier this year was a concession that served no conservation purpose at all. It was a concession that was given purely for revenue. And so if we're starting to see conservation values, such as the untouched nature of that place, being compromised for revenue in a small case like that, what are we going to see in more important places with more important conservation values. We've seen the department allow commercial eeling. Mr Chair?
Kevin Haig.
Thank you, Mr Chair. We've seen the department allow commercial eeling in national parks. Commercial eeling of threatened longfin tuna. Longfin tuna, maybe. And so what was the reason for that? Well, actually, again, it's revenue. And so what we're seeing, sir, is an environment where the government has starved the Department of cash. That $52 million reduction in funding for the Department of Conservation over a 4-year period, at a time when the threats to our biodiversity, the threats to our natural values, the threats to our public conservation estate are greater and greater. Now that leaves the department in a totally invidious position, because it has increasing demands on its budget on the one hand and decreased revenue on the other side. And what that means is it's looking in this new business development strategy that it's got. It's looking for ways of developing new revenue streams. And this bill that extends the time of concessions through to 10 years with not necessarily any public say at all actually provides an avenue for the department to pursue. The temptation will be great to grant concessions under this new provision for revenue, because those will be more lucrative. There's more in it for business to do that. And so the risk is that the objectives of the Act of preserving those fantastic treasured places for all New Zealanders living now and all of those to come, for their inherent biodiversity and conservation values, but also for their recreational access, that those objectives will be the ones that are compromised by that process, sir. So in summary, sir, what I'm saying is that this bill, in respect of the changes to the Conservation Act and to the Reserves Act, is bad law. It doesn't fit the objectives of the bill and this kind of bill, but also it sets a set of objectives for the department which are at odds with the purpose of the Act and with the purpose of that public conservation estate, and it should not proceed, sir. Thank you.
Charles Chauvel.
Chairman, I just want to take a short call to finish the